Dear God, thank you so much for who you are, Lord. Thank you for just this time we can come together and hang out, Lord, play fun games, hang out with our friends, sing, Lord, worship you, and just learn more about how to live for you, Lord. I just pray that you'd speak to me this morning. And Lord, you just continue to work in these students' lives that they can be salt and light for you. We love you in your name. Amen. How many of you guys have been to Whitewater? Where's my Whitewater people out there? If you have not been to Whitewater and you're in 7th grade, you need to sign up we're going to do sign-ups probably the end of March, so it's coming soon, but you need to sign up for Whitewater because it's an amazing trip. Now, if you've been to Whitewater, you would understand that we have this really cool sandy beach at Whitewater. It's right on the river. We have our own sandy beach, and I think there's only like 2 sandy beaches on the 3-day stretches of us rafting on the 3 stretches. It's amazing, and we have one of those nice sandy beaches. Now, you guys know that I have a rule that you're allowed to go to the point. We have a point. It's kind of cool. The way our river works is if you start going upstream, the river goes and then it bends pretty sharp to the left and goes up there, and it creates this point. And what's cool about our area out there is it's wide open, so you can see it from the beach, so I let you go to the point. But what you don't know is if you were to go just a little bit farther upstream, which you're not allowed to do, but if you go a little farther, there's actually some perfect jumping rocks up there. Okay, there's some perfect jumping rocks. What I mean by perfect is they're only like 8 feet high, so it's not too scary. It's perfect to do a lot of cool things. It's awesome, okay? Now here's the problem. Every year at my rules speech, I tell everyone, you are not allowed to jump off any rock unless it's approved by me. And everyone's excited, like, okay, Trav, we'll listen to you. But guess what? One year, people snuck off and they found that jumping rock. And students started jumping off it, and leaders were like, that's a perfect jumping rock. So all the leaders start jumping off it, and they're hanging out over there. And I get word they're jumping off that rock, and I'm like, oh, crud. And I get into my Travis sprint, okay, trying to go over there. And when I get up there, I'm like, stop, what are you guys doing? Like, Travis, this is the perfect rock. And I'm like, no, it's not. It seems perfect. Everything looks good, but you don't understand. And I said, leaders, come here. And I show them under the water about 2.5 feet, 3 feet deep, below the surface, this far from where everybody was landing, is this sharp rock that comes like this to a point. And if literally students or adults would have just jumped a little farther to the right, there could have been some serious, dangerous things that would have happened. And probably I'm going to be taking someone to the hospital or something like that. And the reason why I share that story is sometimes things look like they're awesome. They're great. And we don't understand that something that looks great could still be dangerous. And there's a lot of things like that in life. That's kind of why our God has rules set up and says, listen, you think you know what's good, but you don't know what's 2.5, 3 feet below the surface over here that's hidden that could be very dangerous. And the reason I want to talk about this today, we continue our shipwrecked, where we're talking about different relationships that can wreck our relationship with God that we don't want to wreck. We want to make sure that we have these good relationships. And here's the thing is today what we're going to talk about is a relationship that if we're not careful, it's pretty dangerous and it could destroy or wreck our relationship with God. And that ship that we want to talk about today is called dating. We're going to talk about dating today. We're going to talk about dating. Now, I want you to understand something is some of you don't even care about dating right now. You're like, Trav, it's not even on my mind, okay? I'm not right now, I might be attracted to the opposite sex, but like I'm just not really thinking about it. Some of you are like, that's all I think about, okay? Some of you are like, dating, Trav? I've already dated 15 people, okay? I'm an expert, okay? But what you don't understand is this dating relationship can actually be dangerous if it's not done right. I remember that in my high school, when I was in high school, junior or senior, I had a friend. There was a friend that was kind of the popular guy, but he wasn't really a strong Christian, but he was popular, so I liked hanging out with him. I was an insecure high schooler, so I was hanging out with this guy, and he liked one of the hottest girls in the high school group, right? We had 70 students in our high school ministry. He was in love with this girl. She liked him because he was cool, and they were hanging out. And he starts talking about how, they're in love and all this stuff. And so he's talking about, like, he's been pressuring her to go farther sexually. And I remember that she's this awesome girl. She loves the Lord. And I remember to always say, but man, she always says no. And I was like, didn't have the heart to tell him because I'm an insecure guy. So I'm like, that sucks. But inside I'm like, way to go, girl. You're legit, okay? And I remember that I was even like hoping that she never gave in. But what happened is I remember still the time he called, it's like, Trav, she finally gave in. And he was like so excited. And I remember going, oh man, I was bummed. And then I remember that weekend at church. She came, and just so happens, what does the pastor speak on? Speaks on how we need to stay pure till we get married. And I remember looking over her, not knowing that she doesn't know that I know this, and you could just, her heart just sank. And here's the thing is, the pastor, it was never his intention to guilt trip anyone. His intention was not to hurt anyone. He was saying how God calls us to be sexually pure, that it's actually better for us to stay pure till we get married. And we'll talk about that. We're going to have a talk on why we should wait to have sex till we get married and why it's actually way better. We'll talk about those things later. But here's the sad part is, this girl never walked into church again, as far as I know. The guilt, the shame ate her up. I know that about 6-7 years later, I found out they ended up getting married, and I asked them if they're going to church, if they're following God, and they're like, no. Now, there's a chance they are today, but I have no evidence of that. And it was because I believe she didn't do dating right. She didn't do dating right, and it's crazy how it ended up destroying the most important relationship, which is our relationship with God. And so today I want to talk about this idea of dating and how it can be dangerous and maybe how to do it right. And this is going to surprise you, but I believe to do it right, you shouldn't date yet. You shouldn't date yet. I don't think that you should date yet. Now, like I said, some of you are already like, well, Trav, too late. Okay, great. Maybe now you need to take a break. Maybe some of you need to break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend right now. Okay? Now, I will tell you this right now is here's the thing. Let me explain a little bit. Some of us hear the word dating. You're like, well, I'm not dating yet. It's not like I have a car that I can take a girl or a boy to go on a date somewhere. But I am saying if you call someone your boyfriend or girlfriend, I don't think you should even do that. What? Yeah, I don't think you should. I don't think you are ready to date. Okay? I just don't think you are. But some of you guys are like, but Trav, I think I am. I think I'm ready. So here's what I want to do right now is I want to give you 3 questions to ask yourself to find out if you really are ready to date. And I'd be willing to bet that every single one of you in this room cannot answer yes to all these questions. And if you can't answer yes to all these questions, then I don't think you're ready to date. But here's the cool part is, even if you can't answer yes to all these questions are going to help you get ready to date. So if you can start asking these questions in your life, if you can start working through these, then guess what? One day you will be ready to date. That's the cool part. So let's dive right in. The first question that you should ask yourself, and you need to find out, could you answer yes to this is, it's crazy, are you dateable? Are you dateable? Okay? And you're like, Trev, that's the question? Well, of course I'm going to answer yes to that. Have you seen me? You know what I'm saying? But here's the myth. The myth is this. There's a myth that everyone is dateable. Hey, you know what? I'm in junior high now. I'm a teenager. I have these emotions and these feelings for the opposite sex. I am dateable. And that's a myth. Not everyone is dateable. Because here's the thing. If you are already starting to like someone, if you're already pursuing relationships, I'm willing to bet you start to have this idea of like, but this is kind of who I kind of want. And of course, we go big. Like, that person's amazing. But we forget is these amazing people, why would they date you? Like, do you have the qualities that make you a good boyfriend or girlfriend? Like, are you working on that? Are you working on becoming dateable? Because we just think it's easy. The world says, hey, I have these emotions, these feelings for people, and now I should act on them. And that's wrong. A lot of us, we're not even dateable. We're not ready. And here's your like, but Travis, what does that mean? How do I even become dateable? Well, let me help you. There's some verses, okay? For instance, right here, 2 Peter. If you look on your note sheet, I have 3 verses or 3 sections of verses. Guess what? All of these verses have lists of things you should work on so you will be dateable. First one, 2 Peter 1, 5 through 8, it says this. This is Paul talking. He says, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness brotherly love, and to brotherly kindness, love. And it's talking about these things that we need to be adding. We need to become dateable. And you need to be working on these things. There's another list that I have on there for you girls. Proverbs 31. It's an amazing chapter. It's the end of Proverbs. It's this whole chapter on what an amazing woman looks like. Proverbs 31:10, just Proverbs 31:10 talks about a wife of noble character who can find. She is worth far more than rubies. Girls, you want to be dateable? You need to work on what it says in Proverbs 31. And I will tell you right now, you will become dateable. Everybody will want to date you. And I have these lists that those are things we can work on now. You're like, Trav, I want to be dateable. And we think we need to work on our pickup lines. We need to work on our wave to make sure we have a good wave like I have, okay? We feel like we have to work on these things. And that's the thing is, you need to work on these character qualities in your life so that you will become dateable. But I think a lot of us are not. So if I ask the question, you're dateable, you go, well, if that's what you say you're ready to date, you're like, okay, check, I'm not ready. All right? Second thing is this. Do you know what, let me see if I word this right. Do you know what you want in a future husband or wife? Do you know what you want in a future husband or wife? Here's what's crazy is I am willing to bet you haven't even thought about what you want in a future husband and wife. You haven't even thought about it. And you know what? If you haven't thought about it, you're not ready to date. Do you have a list that you're like, Trav, I got it. I've been working on it for 5 years. No. But if you have that, I'd say, okay, maybe you're a little more ready to date. Do you know what you want in a future husband and wife? Because here's the dating myth. The dating myth is this. The myth is dating is the best way to find out. Trav, I don't know what I want in a husband or wife, but why do you think I'm dating? Well, here's the problem is when we date, believe it or not, when we date, that means there's going to be breakups. There's going to be different pressures. There's going to be different things that are going to happen. And what happens is you, believe it or not, will not focus on what you want in a future husband or wife. You will actually focus on trying to please them to keep them. And here's what I found out, is people that say that they're trying to figure out who they want to marry by dating people, they fall into the same cycle. The negatives that they choose in a boyfriend or girlfriend, and they go, ooh, I don't like that. That's who they end up choosing if they didn't work on this first. Believe it or not, I see that cycle. And so I see people like, no, I'm just going to start dating now because that's how you find out. It's like, no, that's not really how it works. You end up falling into the same cycle, and guess what? You never get out of it. Isn't that crazy? We should be putting together a list. Now, somebody asks, well, Trav, then if I can't date right now, what do I do? Well, here's what I tell you to do is you should become friends with the opposite sex and have as many friends of the opposite sex as possible. It's interesting to say the opposite sex. Listen, I want you to know something. The Bible is very, very, very clear. As I take a sidebar, the Bible is very clear that if you're attracted, same-sex attraction, okay, that we have some of you that are struggling with same-sex attraction. Understand, and I'm glad you are here. because God loves you. But I will let you know something, that acting on that, the Bible is very clear that it's sin. It's very clear. It's very clear that biblically, you will not be able to get married to someone. You should not marry someone of the same sex. You should not do anything sexual with them, because that is sin. I want to let you know it's something that's very clear. But here's the thing is, just because God says that and he wants to work on us, I want you to understand something, that just because he says does not mean he doesn't love you. He's just saying, guess what? That's a sin. That's not how I designed it. See, he designed us to want to pursue people of the opposite sex, and he wants us to get to know them. And I want to encourage, this is crazy, you're hearing it from youth pastor, have as many friends with the opposite sex as possible. But don't date them. Don't. Have as many friends, hang out with them. In fact, you know what? I'm telling you, you are allowed to like as many people of the opposite sex as you want. Why not? You're not dating them. You're like, dude, that girl's hot, that girl's cute, she's funny, she's awesome. It's like, dang, I like them all. Okay, now Trav is married, so now I can't like a lot of girls of the opposite sex. But before you start dating and get married, guess what? You can like as many people as possible. And here's what you should be doing, is you should be hanging out with them, and you should now start trying to figure out, ooh, those are some traits that I like in the opposite sex. And maybe start going, dang, see, I like how this guy likes this. I like how this boy is this. I like this boy, and you start putting together a list of what you want. I'll be honest, if you're like, Trav, how do I put together that list? Here's some more verses. Guys, you know what you should be looking for? You should be looking for that Proverbs 31 girl. That's really what you should be reading the Bible and looking and going, that's the kind of girl I want. Isn't that cool, girls? I'm telling you, you should work on those attributes. Guys, that's the kind of girl you should want. Girls, you're like, well, where's my list? Well, your list right here is found in Timothy. Click this. It's in 1 Timothy 3, 2 through 3. It is amazing. Timothy gives this incredible, actually, it's Paul is telling Timothy this list of what an overseer, what a guy on fire for Christ should look like. And this is just a little snippet of some of the stuff. Look at this. Now, the overseer must be above reproach, the husband of but one wife. Okay, hopefully that's not an issue. Okay, back then that could have been an issue. Okay, but it says this, real quick, I'll go back. Above reproach. Above reproach means someone that does what's right even when no one's looking. They make great decisions. Another thing that they should be is self-controlled, temperate, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not give in to drunkenness, not violent, but gentle, and it keeps going. You should want some guys like this. But it's funny how sometimes because someone's hot or good-looking or popular, we give up on those. And I'm telling you, those are the things that are later help save marriages. Okay? So we need to start working on this list, but really you should have the most important thing. The first thing on your list, top of everyone's list, should be a strong Christian. And you're like, but Trav, why does that have to be I'm telling you right now. I have so many people who are like, yeah, I want to marry a Christian. But this person was so hot. They were so amazing. I was hoping I'd change them later. And you know what happened is you get married to them, and then you start having kids, and you want to start going to church, and your spouse is like, nope, I don't believe in that, and you're not taking my kids. And you're like, what did I do? And you weren't thinking that because the person was so hot and attractive and pretty legit. That's all you wanted at that time, and then you realize that's not everything. We're talking about our future here. God designed us to want the opposite sex, but he wants us to do it right. So first question is this: are you dateable? Second question is, do you know what you want in a future husband or wife? And third one is this, last one is this: do you know how to date? Do you know how to date? See, a lot of us think we just know how to date, okay? The myth is this. Go ahead and click it. You should have a boyfriend or girlfriend right now. That's a myth. Hey, you know what? You have these hormones. You've hit puberty. A lot of us have started to hit puberty. We're ready. Society says, in fact, it is crazy, but you're going to start getting pressure where adults are like, so who do you like? Who are you dating? Like, there's this outside pressure. Some of your friends might even put that pressure on you. There's a pressure for you to date. There's a pressure that says, I am ready. The problem is, I don't think you are ready. If you've already filled out your note sheet, I have 4 questions that you're going to write at the bottom of it. I have 4 questions that you should ask to find out, are you really ready to date? First one is this. Are you willing to let God be first in your life? First question, I don't have a fill-in for it. Write this down. Are you willing to let God be first in your life? Here's the thing. If you're not willing to let God be first in your life, you're not even ready to date. You don't even know how to date yet. You're not. Because here's the thing is, I will tell you right now, most marriages end in a divorce, they end in a divorce because God is not number one in their life. And some of you guys are like, whoa, wait a minute. My mom and dad are Christians and they got a divorce. And I would say, yep, and I'm still correct. Wait, so you're saying they don't love God? I didn't say that. I said, here's the problem is, he probably wasn't first in their life at that time. Maybe after the divorce, they said, oh my goodness, God, the reason why this happened is because God's not first in my life. And I'd be willing, if you're like, well, I'm going to go talk to my mom and dad. I'm willing to bet if they stood right here, they'd be like, honestly, at that season of my life when we ended up getting a divorce, you're right, God was not number one in my life. Because studies show that if God is the center of my life, the Lord of my life, and if both husband and wife love the Lord more than anything else, they're not getting a divorce. And you hear this a lot. He should be at the center of your marriage. And that's a cool phrase. And I'm like, no, he should just be number one in your life, and he should be number one in my wife's life. And guess what? If he's number one in our life, no matter what happens, because we're going to go through hard times. Life is not easy. It's stressful at work. My biggest stress is your parents. It's all right. No, it's not every one of your parents. But parents call me, they're mad because they love you and they want the best for you. And then I get chewed out, and now I'm stressed, and I go home, and then my wife, not meaning to do something, says something wrong, and I'm already on tilt, already upset because of something happened at work, and then who do I take it out on? My wife. And if she doesn't go, Trav, you're lucky that I love God more than you. Because I would go off on you right now. Do you see what I'm saying? And it's vice versa. Because relationships are hard. They're hard. But if God's number one, we understand, oh, my wife goes, I wonder if Trad have a bad day at work. What's going on? That's not him. So you see what I'm saying? God has been on your life. Another question is this to write down. Do you know how to set boundaries now? Do you know how to set boundaries now before you date? You're like, what do you mean boundaries? Okay, you need to have a set of rules on how you're going to do dating. Hey, I already have some rules. When I was dating, I wouldn't hang out with my girlfriend or boyfriend after 10. We're not alone ever in a room with the door shut. Hey, there's a certain boundary we have on how far we go physically. We had all these rules. If you don't have the ability and you don't have rules set up right now, you're not ready to date. You don't know how to date because that's part of the dating process. You should set rules now. You need to set them. You need to have boundaries set so that you're ready. And here's what I'd say, even another thing kind of off of that is, would you be willing to talk to someone about these boundaries within the first, second, or third date? Let me tell you, if you feel like you're ready to date, can you go to your boyfriend or girlfriend and go, okay, hey, so what gets you in trouble sexually? Like, what if I do something or certain movie we watch, what's going to turn you on most that could be really bad for a relationship and we might actually mess up sexually? And if you feel like you can talk to the opposite sex, your boyfriend or girlfriend, and have a conversation like that, and they're like, well, honestly, these movies are bad, and blah, 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 and hey, when we're late, oh, man, that's when I get turned on. And you can actually talk about that stuff, okay, maybe you're a little more ready to date. I'd be willing to bet there's no way you're ready, because I'll tell you, I was uncomfortable talking to my wife when we were dating at 20, okay? So maybe I wasn't mature enough yet at 20. Some of you guys might be at 18, maybe 16, but I don't know any 14-year-old. That's like, hey, that's our second conversation was, hey, I want to set boundaries because I don't want to have sex with you till I get married, and I want to protect you. Yeah, right. But if you feel like you have that ability, then I'd be like, okay, maybe you're a little closer to being ready. Another question to ask is this. Are you willing to run if it's not a good situation? Joseph, it's found in Genesis 39, chapter 1. Verse 1. He is a slave in Potiphar's house. He has risen up to be the number one slave. He's a good-looking young guy. And Potiphar has this hot wife, okay, that, well, I'm exaggerating. We don't know for sure, but we're assuming if this was a rich guy, he had this hot wife, okay, because I don't want you to look and go, Trav, I don't see hot wife in there. It's assumed. And The house is alone. No one's in there. He is in charge of the house. He goes in, and she grabs and says, come to bed with me right now. And he luckily had the ability to take off. She even had his cloak. He had to jump out of the cloak and took off running. I wanted you to know something. Are you willing to, in a bad situation, can you run? And there's two types of bad situations. One is an inappropriate situation where you're not in a good situation that you should run so that you don't sin. But there's also another part of that is if you're in a bad situation where you're in love with someone, they're not good for you. And all your friends are saying, that person's not good for you. Are you willing to run? Are you willing to listen to great wisdom advice from someone and go, dang it, I'm in love with her, but if everyone's saying she's bad for me, then I need to break up with her. If you are that strong that you're like, yes, I'm going to listen to wise counsel, then I might go, okay, but I'm willing to bet most of are not. You're not ready to run. And that's why some people are stuck in terrible, abusive relationships, ones that ruin their walk with God because somebody was given advice and they didn't have the guts or the ability to run. If you can't run, you're not ready to date. You're not ready to date. Because you need to be able to think through these things. And the last one is this. Are you willing to be patient? Are you willing to be patient? Are you willing to be patient and go, God, you know what? I'm in love with this girl, but I'm going to be patient because is that who you want? I remember thinking there was girls that I liked in high school that all of a sudden they started dating someone and my heart would break and I'm like, God, but I thought she was the one. And God's like, Trav, I got someone better for you. You just wait till you meet your wife. She's going to be way better than them. And I had a hard time being patient, but God's like, no, look what I gave you. And I think, are we willing to be patient? Because if you're not willing to be patient, you're just going to date the first person you see that actually says they like you, you're not ready to date. You see, I believe looking back, we're not ready to date yet. But if we can start working on these things, if we can start answering these questions with yeses, we're working on it. And my hope is when you finally do date, you've done your homework, you're ready, and then there's going to be less mistakes, and it won't affect your relationship with God because that's really the most important relationship it is. But I've seen so many times where dating has destroyed relationships. Are you ready? Probably not. Can you work on some things to start getting ready? Yes. And that's my hope for you. Let me go ahead and pray. Dear God, I just pray for these students. Lord, I'm sure some are really excited. Some are already dating. And Lord, I pray that they now should just break up. It's funny. Wouldn't it be great, Lord, if students leave this room going, call their boyfriend or girlfriend, yep, I got to break up with you. Why not? You don't like me anymore? No. My pastor said I'm not ready yet. Lord, that would be amazing. That'd be amazing, God, because I think a lot of these students, they're not ready yet. Lord, they can't answer yes to all these questions. And until they can, Lord, would you work on them? Would you work on them becoming dateable? Would you work on them trying to figure out what they really want, Lord? Would you work on them starting to have confidence of being able to talk through situations so, Lord, they can be healthy? Lord, they're not supposed to be ready now, but they can definitely work on it. Lord, I pray that you'd work in these students' life and that you would continue number one. We love you so much in your name. Amen.